Hello again. Thank you for taking time to join us for a moment in the Word. Today I'm going to be going to the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17 in what is probably my most favorite passage of Scripture in all of the Bible. It is the story of David and Goliath. Matter of fact, I have probably preached more sermons from this passage of Scripture than anywhere else in the Bible. It seems like every time I read this story, there is another nugget of truth that sticks out to me that I just grab hold of and glean from, and it just encourages me, and so I hope it'll be an encouragement for you today. In the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17, I'm going to begin reading at verse 4, and the Bible tells us there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Putting that in our terminology, Goliath was a man that was about 9 foot tall. He was a massive man, a giant. But as I've often looked at this passage of Scripture, and as God showed me one time, it was almost like the words were just flashing off the page at me. In that verse, it says that the Philistines had a champion, and his name was Goliath. But as I continue to read this story, I find that day that there was no champion amongst the Israelites. As a matter of fact, the Bible tells us for 40 days, Goliath came out, taunted, and challenged the men of God, but they would all run and hide in their tents, even King Saul. But on one particular day, as Jesse sent his son David to the battlefield, it would be there that David, a man who loved God and a man who knew God was, heard Goliath cursing his God and challenging the Israelites, that he stepped up and he said, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he would curse my God? I will go out and fight him." When the news came to King Saul, he wanted to know who this man was. And when David came before him, he said, "There's no way that you can go out and defeat this giant." And it's there that David gave him his testimony. "As I was watching my father's sheep, there came out a bear and a lion. But as the Spirit of God moved upon me, I caught the bear and the lion with my bare hands, and I rent them and killed them, and I brought the lamb back to the fold. I will go out and I will face this giant. I'm not afraid." So David, as he took his sling that he was so familiar with and gathered some stones by the creek, he went out to face this giant with odds that were seemingly impossible. But as we find in this story, as Goliath saw him, he said, "Am I a dog that you send out a boy?" He said, "I'm going to kill you today." That David began to say, "You come to me with a spear and a sword and a shield. But I came to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, and this day he will give me the victory." I want to encourage you that are watching this video today, you are stronger and you are mightier than you think you are. You see, the Philistines had their champion, but for 40 days, nobody would stand up and say, "I'll be a champion for God," until David came to the battlefield. You might know in life that there have been many people that are against you. You may have even felt on several occasions that there's no way that God could ever use somebody like me. Well, can I just say, join the club? I feel like that so much. But God is not looking for the superstar. God is not looking for the most intelligent person. God is not looking for somebody that's got it all together. He's looking for somebody that's willing. He's looking for somebody that's available. He's looking for somebody that'll have faith and trust in Him. And when God can find that man or woman, it doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't even matter what the enemy says. God will have him a champion that'll go out on the battlefield. So as you go throughout this day, have a made-up mind. God, I'm going to be a champion for you. Regardless of how big the enemy is, regardless of how much the odds are stacked against me, God, I'm going to serve you and I'm going to be a champion and I'm going to do everything that you ask for me to do. And then we could stand back and be amazed at the results. As David faced down that giant that day, he took out that slingshot he was so familiar with and landed a stone right between the giant's eyes. And when that giant fell, David went and stood on him, took his sword, the giant's sword, and cut off his head with that sword. And in that moment, all of Israel began to pursue after the Philistines. Can I tell you, when God finds a champion that'll stand up for Him, it'll bring victory to all those that are around them. As always, I want to thank you for joining us today for a moment in the Word. I pray you have a great day. God bless.